ahead and start. And as I say, these are very. I just do these very casually. The only difference is that we're recording. So, okay. Uh, Nancy Menger Draves.
Actually, it's Nancy Menger Draves.
Okay, and
My
you're a
full name.
historian, author and
I am
historian.
yes, I'm an independent Texas historian, and I'm also an author. I just recently published a book. Texas Tech published a diary, a Civil War diary, and so that came out in 2017. And I'm also a former teacher.
Great. So, a little bit about your family. The Menger name in San Antonio is a famous name. The Mengers were part of the German merchant class in San Antonio. Is that correct?
That is correct. There were actually two Mingers that came over from Germany to San Antonio around the same time, about 1847. They were not related at all, and that can be confusing because the name is quite prominent here in San Antonio. William Menger and his wife Mary Menger established the Menger Hotel, which is still very much of the life of San Antonio. It's located in Alamo Plaza. And then Simon Menger came with his wife and four children and opened the Soap Works, which was a factory in San Antonio. And he also brought with him his skill in German music. He was a pianist. He wrote waltzes. He sang and was responsible for actually the first German men's choir here in San Antonio.
So, the Germans in San Antonio sounded like a very industrious group of people.
Yes, yes. I think about it sometimes, and I'm thinking that they landed here in Texas and immediately started on establishing themselves in their communities. My family, I mean, I've seen this over the maybe years of studying them and seeing their contributions. My own grandfather, it sort of carried down generation after generation. My grandfather was never, idle. He was very frugal. Most of the Germans were very educated. They promoted education. Simon Menger, the Soapworks entrepreneur, he helped to establish the German English School here in San Antonio, which opened in 1858 to promote the education of the German children. All of all of the courses were taught in both English and German, and then eventually they added Spanish to this so that their children would be well versed in these languages and be able to do business in the city. They also promoted the whole person, the whole child, where there was a gymnastics aspect to it, so like a physical education became part of it. They went to school, I believe, something like 6 days a week. And had quite a rigorous academic curriculum that they followed, and the parents supported it. It was very stringent, and they supported their children, and it was tuition only. It was not a lot, I guess, but it was something they had to contribute to their education.
Where do Mengers come from in Germany? Do you know
The
that name? Is it associated with any region or?
William Menger was from Windecken. Now he is the hotel proprietor. His wife, Mary Menger, was from Hanover, and Simon Menger was from Thuringia. Mm-hmm. And so they were from what I understand to be maybe different regions in Germany, and then came here. But they all shared the German community coming together here shared a common language, customs, culture, music, art, food, and they celebrated that. And I know that to this day, the German community in San Antonio celebrate that culture.
They're a very inclusive society. Isn't the Singarunda groups sort of kept the singing groups kept them intact as a community? It sort of was a starting point. Do you think that accounts for their success, that they really stuck to each other and didn't just sort of go off on their own, and that they formed a really strong community? That must account for their success.
Yes, I do feel that it counted for their success, but there was also the willingness to become a part of the city, to become a part of the community. The evidence that they wanted to learn English, that they wanted to learn Spanish, so that they could become a part of this multicultural community and do business with the entire community. I mean, Simon Menger was making soap, and the entire community was reaping the benefit of that. And eventually, the state, by 1871, with Simon Menger, he was manufacturing for soap for the United States government. He had a contract with the United States government. So their culture was certainly, and is certainly to this day, important, and there's been that continuance of the culture. But initially it was something where they wanted to share in the life of San Antonio.
What would you say, since you've studied them and you've written a book on one of the families, what would you say are the top skills or talents that the German settlers showed that accounts for their success? I was talking earlier about the things that I had learned. Would you say, what are the German traits that you would say?
First and foremost, a very strong faith in God and their abilities, and
You've got family members over
yes,
here. You said
they
shared a beer.
Yeah, things were in moderation, and there was a strong work ethic. They were educated. They believed strongly in education. They were very, very frugal. No waste. Most things could be used for years and years, and if it broke, we can fix it. They were self-starters. They saw opportunities. They were innovators. The hotel proprietor, William Menger, and his wife, Mary Menger, the steam fire engine had appeared on the scene in the United States, and William Menger went and purchased a fire engine, brought it to San Antonio so that we would have the first fire engine.
They were real doers.
They were real doers, and they were strong individuals. Mary Menger, her maiden name was Bonschluter. She actually came to San Antonio with her mother, two women traveling alone from Hanover. The entire journey took them 9 months. They were laid over in Liverpool for a period of time, then stranded on a sandbar off the coast of Texas near Galveston, made their way here in 1847, and then her mother died, and so she was left alone. Now, certainly there was a part of the population that spoke German, but she was a lone woman. I mean, this was a new community for her. She went to work, and then soon she opened a boarding house, a small boarding house, and married, lost her husband, lost her first child, and then eventually married William Menger and they opened the Menger Hotel and the Western Brewery there in the Menger.
Tell me about the Menger Hotel then and today, because Menger, not only did it hold on but it's one of the most fancy hotels that you can stay at when you come to San Antonio. So,
Yes.
It's really got cachet. Talk about that.
It's a beautiful hotel. They built it in 1859. They had the Western Brewery too was a part of it. Mary Menger was an amazing proprietress. She was, from what we read, a fantastic cook. They brought in all these fresh fruits and vegetables and game, venison, and I think bear, just what was ever, cows, they slaughtered, pigs. So I just had an amazing table that she set. The rooms were immaculate. Small but immaculate. They did a lot of entertaining. All the fancy quote do's of the day took place in the Menger. It is still a beautiful historic hotel. My husband and I, though we live in San Antonio, we often go down and stay at the Menger simply because it's an original. I mean, and it definitely has the mark of the Mengers still there within the hotel.
What about, could you talk a little bit about Teddy and the Rough Riders? That's famous.
Yes. There is what is the Roosevelt Bar is a part of the hotel that was built after Mary and William Menger owned the hotel. Stories say that he organized, Teddy Roosevelt organized the Rough Riders there. There have been many people over the years of note that have stayed in the hotel. Robert Lee was there, actually lifted up my great-grandmother on his horse and presented Mary Menger with a locket for my great-grandmother. Ulysses Grant was a hotel goer. Sidney Lanier, the poet, was there for quite a long time. He actually came to San Antonio for health reasons and ended up staying in the hotel, did some of his writing in the hotel. So it continues to be, more recent presidents have stayed there.
It's an exquisite place. I think it's prettier than the St. Anthony. I mean, it just has some sort of gorgeous feeling. It's not a heavy stayed place. It just has this light, airy feeling about it that is hard to describe, but you know what I mean.
I want your voice to say this, though. Okay?
What?
But one of the tributes to the Menger family is that over 150 years, the three, go.
Okay. Over the hotel was built in 1859, and over these many years, only 3 families have actually owned the hotel. So that's really quite amazing when you think about it, and it's been pretty much kept up to look and have the feel of what it did when Mary and William founded the hotel. I will say I want to basically tip my hat to William's wife Mary, because he died in 1871 and she was left with the hotel to run, with the brewery to run. They had the Western Brewery, which was there in the hotel. And the very next day after his death, she posted a note on the door that said that business would not be interrupted, that it would continue on as it had before. Where there may have been the feeling that there were thoughts out there where someone else might be wanting to come in and to take over the hotel, and she wanted it to be clear that was not going to happen. And then she continued to run the hotel for the next 10 years.
Now, tell me a little bit about who owns it now.
Actually, the Moody family from Houston own the hotel at the current time.
So it hasn't been taken over and bought up by the Marriott or anything like that?
No, no, not that,
No.
not that we know of. Now,
Yeah.
I just wanted you to say, again, in your voice, that in 150 years, Cottman's and the Moody's, they never painted a new name on the front of it.
That's
I think
right.
that's a tribute to
that's
Mary
right.
Menger.
That's right. Okay. And another point to really consider is the fact that the name has always remained the same, the Menger Hotel. All of these years since 1859. It's right in the heart of Alamo Plaza. It's just a stone's throw away from the Alamo. So San Antonio is a tourist community. Part of the celebration of our community is our multicultural community, which include the Germans that are lived here that has helped to establish the city, the Tejanos that live here that established the city, Native Americans, African Americans that over the course of time have helped to make our city the amazing city that it is today.
Very good. But I really do think that is interesting that only 3 families have owned it, and that it hasn't been sold to Marriott or somebody.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, we do too.
I think that's really nice. Well, let's see. I'll look at this real quick. Obviously, a lot of merchant. A lot of, but also, of course, music and culture and arts. So they're really all rounders.
Yes, and I would like to say that their descendants, they stressed education, and I think I touched on that earlier. They stressed education. Simon Menger's son, Dr. Rudolph Menger, was a city physician. He went to school actually to study in Leipzig, Germany, and he wrote his father, Simon, from Leipzig in 1869, 1870, 1871, about some of the things that were going on in Germany. And then Simon was writing back about, the progress and the change that was happening in San Antonio. I have quite a few of these German letters between father and son, and unfortunately only have 1 or 2 that have been transcribed, but when given the opportunity to talk here about the Germans in San Antonio and then, our connection to Germany, and then maybe that earlier connection to Germany, I ran across a quote that I thought might be appropriate for
Please
today.
read that. I think that would be great. And tell me with the context then.
The context would be that
The date and
the date of the letter is October 26, 1869. It was written by my great grandfather, Dr. Rudolph Menger, during the time that he was studying to be a physician in Leipzig, Germany, and he was writing to his father, Simon Menger, who was the musician and the soapworks entrepreneur. And he's referring to the fact that in San Antonio, there had been a 100th anniversary here, celebrating the anniversary of the scientist Humboldt. And so he is talking about that, and he says to his father, "It is amazing to see the advancement of the United States as compared to Germany. As I am a German and come from a good German family, I have to empty a bottle of wine in hopes that Germany and the United States will exchange ideas. I think it would be to the good of both countries. I sure do like it over here, even if the difference is so much between the 2 countries." On another note, he adds another note here, another quote from him would be, "Mountains and valleys won't come together, but people do." And I think that says so much about the relationship that the Germans had back then to their homeland, that connectedness to the homeland, but then how much of the German community here in San Antonio continue to feel, that connection, that allure of Germany, that pride in the culture and in the food and in the education, and that many of what their forefathers brought with them from their homeland, we continue to celebrate that in San Antonio, at least today.
A little bit about then. Last couple of questions. A little bit forward-looking. Then, considering how prominent the Germans were in a town named San Antonio, which is Spanish, which is kind of unusual in itself. That they came to this rough, brushy land. And I think I remember reading about it was Indianola that they landed in, which doesn't exist anymore, at the Galveston area. And they were promised a lot of stuff by the Verein, the something Verein, including Prince Solms, that they were going to get a land and a house. They're going to get a lot of stuff that they didn't get. And so they had to get to work. So they were so tough and strong and established, but do you think that the Menger name will continue its sort of famous reputation in San Antonio into the 21st century, dragging along German history with it?
I would say so. I certainly, the Menger Hotel, it's an historic site. It's got a marker out in front of the hotel, so will be there forever. So from that standpoint, yes. But I will say too that we celebrate as a community. We celebrate continually the cultures within our community. That's why we are a tourist community. Tourists love to come here because you have that experience of Mexico. You have the experience of just Texas, Tejano art culture. You have the German influence here, certainly. And so, yes, I think that's what people love about our city. So I don't see that dying. I see that continuing. And
do you think it's important that the German namesakes continue? King William being named after Wilhelm the First, and Menger. Is that important that the German heritage continues?
Yes, I believe it is so, and I want to give some credit here to our newspaper, the Express News. They have done for years and years done such a wonderful job of covering German activities in the city, the German culture in the city. I mean, just recently, there was a piece on German contributions to the city, and so I don't see that would be dying out anytime soon.
Yeah.
Because that's who we are as a community. We celebrate our people. We celebrate the immigrants to the city. And just speaking about immigrants in general, they don't look too much different than what we have in our own families. People leaving a homeland, oftentimes because there were political problems, political strife, not being able to own land or, make a living, and seeing Texas, seeing, in our case, San Antonio, as an opportunity. And land was, for many here, very, very inexpensive. And we say, land of the free and home of the brave. Part of, one of our patriotic songs here. So
it's
yes.
The immigrant story of today. It doesn't seem to change a lot. For example, the people coming up from Honduras.
That's right.
Persecution and all of that.
Right.
Being shot at and all these kinds of things.
And risking all sorts of unimaginable danger in that process, going back to Mary Menger, leaving alone with her mother, who was 64, 65 years old, 2 women alone for 9 months on the sea. They're coming for a better opportunity in life. Much the same as the immigrant. I mean, that is what has made America great, because we are such a blend of so many cultures, so many people that have come together, and we celebrate. And I think San Antonio has been exemplary there in terms of that openness to, the varying cultures that are part of who we are.
Mm-hmm. And the story continues, just with different groups, but it's all sort of the same story.
Yes, yes, yes. It would mirror many stories that we hear nowadays. The ones of some of the earlier immigrants coming in.
I wanted to ask you if you would be comfortable telling the story about how Alex Sweet said that they worked 14 hours a day.
Oh yes.
And
Yeah.
you just say that he's a local joker or jokester.
Yes.
And it's like they bring all their old habits and amusements. And
One of which.
There you go.
Okay.
So this is about why did the Germans move so merchant class and come here poor and then end up so well. Mm-hmm. And it's a little side note that the mayor's son wrote and published. But I'd rather Nancy's voice.
That's fine. I mean, the merchant class implies wealth, mm-hmm. so they became that.
And even if they were farmers for 3 generations, they were well-to-do.
Yeah,
that it was the strong work ethic, and one of the mayor's. This was an early writing. One of the mayor's sons, Alex Sweet, was had such a wonderful sense of humor, and he said that one of the things that the Germans enjoyed doing was working 14-hour days. That was what they found as a source of fun and entertainment, which, we smile at, because really, when we do look at these individuals, these family members, and the descendants, hard work was important and was valued.
Yeah. Well, they were all in it together.
Yes.
And I think that helps.
Sharing the food. Yes.
They had these
the hard works. Yes. Yes. My grandfather used to speak about a friend of his. I believe the last name was Kaufman, but I'm not sure. But a fellow German family here, and he said, I always like to think of him when I think about sauerkraut, because he would say, me do like sauerkraut as a favorite, and my grandfather liked sauerkraut as well. So yes, sharing that love of their culture and their food. And
really a strong ethic all the way around. Well, I can't think of any other questions. How many businesses would you say were sort of under the Menger umbrella? Coffee and the hotel.
In the later years, their descendants, they went different paths. Of course, Dr. Menger was a city physician here. Dr. Rudolf Menger was a city physician. He was also a writer. He did a lot of research at Mitchell Lake, which is part of San Antonio history. His son and his brothers and sister started H&H Coffee Company, which was a large coffee company here in San Antonio, and began in around 1919, I think, and then went on into 1963. About half of the family are very strong Catholics, so there are many that went into religious life. I just recently lost a cousin who was the first American missionary in Laos. He went in late 50s, I believe, and was there for a considerable period of time. His name was Matthias Menger, Father Matthias Menger. He was an oblate. Many of the family took on their religious life. There were several nuns in our family. Um, let's
A wide variety of
Southern
occupations.
Messenger.
Southern Messenger, the Catholic newspaper of San Antonio, for many years, the editor was Mary and William Menger's son, Louis William Menger. He wrote the Southern Messenger, he was the editor of the Southern Messenger, which was the Catholic paper in Texas. I mean, it was the go-to paper. It covered all Catholic news in San Antonio. The German Catholic Church in downtown San Antonio, St. Joseph's Catholic Church, which still stands on Commerce Street, kind of wedged in the middle of the heart of San Antonio. It's still very much a part of the German community. Mary Menger was instrumental in contributing quite a bit to the church financially. Her son donated a bell to the church, and that bell still rings. It was called, or is called, the Mary Bell. It rings inside the church every day.
Was there anyone who didn't roll up their sleeves and get busy? Anyone who sat with a book and made a couple of notes and pondered half the day away? It doesn't sound like anybody like that would be allowed.
Most have
You'd be given a broom.
Most have seen the value in community service, community and church service, volunteers. My own mother, Charlotte Menger Belcher, was a community volunteer. She volunteered in the church. She also volunteered with the Salvation Army, the Women's Auxiliary. I was a mentor for many years and did a lot of work in the schools and in the church.
Nothing if not industrious.
Yes, yes. And I think, I'm sure we've mentioned it, but that idea of the civic responsibility, I think that's very much a part of the heart of the family from the very beginning to now. You know, we have a responsibility towards our community. I was reading a portion of President Kennedy's speech where he says, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." And I think that the German population came here with that idea. What can we do for you? What can we offer you? And I think that continues to this day.
Last question. Do you think within you have you tried to be loyal and to incorporate those traits into yourself? Do you look to your Menger ancestors for the way to be in life?
Oh, certainly, yes. I think it's very much a part of me. My mother and my grandfather were very good about sharing family stories about what our values are, what our values should be. And there's always that urgency. I know within myself, there's always that urgency to do more, you know, to write that letter to a friend, to volunteer in the community, you know, to take food to the church, you know, where and then certainly the research now I'm so involved in historical research, certainly that drive I feel comes from, you know, the Menger side of my family.
And then publishing a book as well is not easy to do, especially an historical account where everything has to be right. Otherwise, here come the phone calls. You know,
Yes,
you
that's
got
right.
that wrong. That's
That's
the
right.
phone call you don't want. So
Yes.
you must be dedicated.
Yes, I am very dedicated. I've always enjoyed writing. I've done a lot of writing letters over the course of my life. I am a painter, I'm an artist, but several years back, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I ran across a picture that was actually drawn by a German here in San Antonio that just intrigued me. And then that spurred my interest in doing some research about that particular piece of art, which then pulled me into additional research, and then eventually getting to the point where I transcribed a young woman's Civil War diary that had lived here in San Antonio. Her name was Kitty Anderson, and working on that diary, yes, has been part of my drive and
Nice
determined
for them to lay the path out.
Yes.
Well, very
exactly.
good.
The next time you come to visit us, it's going to be about that painting she just mentioned.
Yes, that's right.
No, you're invited.